Growing Up INFJ, our top 10 most frequented childhood preoccupations. I was scrolling through an INFJ Facebook group trying to figure out what this week's INFJ video would be about, what mood I was in, how vulnerable I wanted to be, what topic you needed to see. And I saw this graphic image come up in the Facebook group, and there were like I was gonna say hundreds, but there was only 45 comments on this Facebook post, and I thought this would be really interesting to read the list of the top 10 things that this person believes is a preoccupation that INFJs had in their childhood. And I thought it would be fun to open up a little bit to you and share my thoughts on each one of them. And then I would love for you to tell me which points out of the 1 to 10 you most relate to, and if you agree with this graphic image. And then at the very end of this video, I want to just give you a little personal professional update for you all, especially as we are nearing or are in the Christmas season. Okay, number 1, reading, studying, or even flipping through encyclopedias and books written for those older than us. That was definitely my experience. Probably not so much the studying, but the reading and the encyclopedia books. I remember when I was growing up, we had this massive bookcase in our living room, and it was filled with just all these editions of, was it Britannica? Encyclopedias. We had dozens of them. My grandfather, I think, gifted it to us, and I just absolutely adored them. I don't really remember if my brother or sister was into them, but I know that was just so much of my childhood. And I would make little cubby houses. We had a pool table, and I would put blankets over the pool table and make a little cubby house, and then just be surrounded by books, and I would read to my heart's content. Not just encyclopedias though, but I loved all types of novels, and from a very early age, I was probably reading things that a young child should not have been reading. Okay, number 2, daydreaming incessantly, consuming as much time as the INFJ adult overthinks and worries on a daily basis. Yeah, definitely a huge daydreamer, and I would say that I'm still a daydreamer. And that's not something that I want to change about myself, because my daydreaming has allowed me to create the life that I'm living right now. My daydreaming has allowed me to have my counselling private business, private practice. My daydreaming led me to moving across Australia to live in my dream location by the beach, in the heat, even though sometimes it gets really hot here, but I love it, and it's my dream, and it was something that I always daydreamed about as a child. And yeah, I had such a vivid imagination as a child. With that vivid imagination, I always wanted to be, well, at one point as a child, I wanted to be an artist, but I guess that wasn't like completely encouraged in me, or I think my parents tried to encourage it in me. I did pottery classes after school. I used to make China dolls and vases and ornaments, and I was really into I forget what it's called, like the glazing. I had pottery that was in art shows when I was 10, and I really loved drawing. I really wanted to be a cartoonist, but of course telling adults that back in 1994 didn't really feel like a believable thing that a young kid from Melbourne, Australia would be able to achieve, and it was never really encouraged in me. And I guess that's probably one aspect of myself as an adult that I wish I pursued more. I feel like I just got distracted. We were talking about daydreaming, but we'll go on. Number 3, doodling when bored or distracted in school class. I wouldn't say that I doodled because I was bored or distracted, but I am such a doodler. If I'm listening to seminars, lectures, if I go to conferences, if I'm on the phone to people, doodle, I need to always be doodling. If you look at all of my journals, any piece of paper that I have little drawings on it. And to be honest, it's the same little drawings that I've always drawn since I was a child. I obviously, when I'm doing a counselling appointment, and because it's on Zoom, I don't doodle while people are talking to me. I doodle if on the rare occasion the counselling appointment is over the phone and the person can't see me through the camera. But during a Zoom counselling appointment, to combat my lack of being able to doodle, I always have a fidget toy in my hand, and I will proudly show my clients this. I'm not embarrassed that I need to be squeezing something or like fidgeting something, because it helps me to absorb information and what people are telling me. It actually helps me to be more present. Number 4, quietly sitting with adults and listening in on their conversations instead of playing with kids our age. To be honest, I don't know if that was me. I do remember I always wanted to be involved in what adults were talking about, but I felt a real freedom in playing with kids, and I was really lucky to grow up on a street where I had a neighbor who was really similar to me. She is now a scientist, so she definitely would probably have that scientific thinking mind. And hi Jess, if you happen to be watching this. But she, from my memory, was also very imaginative and such an introvert. I don't think she'll be an INFJ, maybe an INTJ, I'm not sure. But because of her, I never felt the need to want to hang out with the adults, because we just had so much fun. But we played in such a beautiful and magical way that I didn't see many other children play in. And so I feel so grateful that I got to grow up with her. 5, playing mum, dad to our stuffed toys and or dolls. To be honest, I hated playing mums and dads. I hated it. My sister loved that game, but it wasn't really me. I will say though that my stuffed toys were definitely alive. I believed in magic. I still believe in magic. And I could not throw out stuffed toys, because if anything had eyes, then they had a soul. And they were my best friends, and I spent so much time with them, and I would talk with them and I would chat with them and would play. I don't remember having dolls though. I was very much into the cuddly, soft, furry animals. In fact, I tell my kids this all the time. My favorite toy growing up was so random that I don't think adults realize that it was my favorite toy. But I was into, I'm gonna try and put a picture up if I can find it, but I was into this guy, and if you can't see it, sorry, but I called him Bumblebee, and he was this cute little pink bee that had a tail with a small plum at the end, and then you could fold him inside out and turn him into a plum. And I just adored him. He was my everything. Number 6, hiding in a secluded room, quiet corner, whenever relatives or neighbors visited unexpectedly. That was my teen years. As a teenager, my bedroom was my safe space. It was where I hid myself. It's where I could be fully myself. As a child, I don't really remember doing that though. There was definitely adults in my life that I was fearful of and that I would run away from. But yeah, I don't really remember doing that until I was a teenager. 7, passionately involved in creative pursuits, such as writing, music, acting, etc., i.e. only if fostered. Well, like I said, I really wanted to be a cartoonist, but that wasn't really encouraged in me. I had a whole sketchbook of all these cartoon characters that I thought one day I would turn into my very own cartoon show. That didn't eventuate. That's okay. I let that dream go when I was about 12 years old. Other than that, I was really into writing, and all of my report cards growing up from prep, which, do you guys know what prep is? It's like right before grade 1, but it's part of primary school. But yeah, All of my report cards talked about my imagination, my writing, my creative writing skills, and it was actually the thing that gave me the highest marks when I graduated from high school. In our English exams, we had to do an essay, and I was always terrible at essays, but the exam paper board people screwed up the question that I chose to write on, and so then they had to look back on older assignments from the year, and a lot of the assignments I chose was all like creative writing and storytelling, and I just loved that. I loved it so much that even when I went to uni to study youth work, I chose creative writing as an elective, but at the very last moment I pulled out because I freaked out, because I figured all the people doing that elective wouldn't be my fellow youth work students, and I didn't want to look like an idiot, and I never pursued that. But to this day I still enjoy writing, and one day I would love to write a book for you, and I feel like that time could be coming maybe in the next year or 2 or 3 or 4. I just don't know what it is that I would write about yet, and I'm hoping that the right idea will be sparked and then I'll just write it and present it to you. 8, highly sensitive to anyone suffering, injured, and willing to help accompany them through recovery, healing, and until they are well again. That was definitely me. In fact, one of my earliest memories, I think I would have been about 3 or 4. We would go into the city, so in the CBD in Melbourne, at Christmas time to go visit Santa, to look at the Myer windows and do all the Christmas things. And I remember when I was really little, we walked past a homeless man, and I still remember to this day, it was probably the first experience I had that I remember of seeing a homeless person, and I felt my heart break. And I remember I wasn't afraid of him. I didn't look at him and think ill or oh my god, like is he gonna hurt me? But I just felt my heart crack open and just all this love rush out, and I felt like all I wanted to do was give him my pocket money, which was like 20 cents or 50 cents. And I just wanted to give him my money, and all I wanted to do was find him a home. I think he had a dog, and my heart broke for the dog. And it was from that moment that even at such a young, early age, I knew that I wanted to help people. That's all I wanted to do. Was when I was an adult, I just wanted to do something that helped people, that made a difference, that would create change. And one of my first jobs that I had was working with the homeless and working in a homeless crisis center. And I just remember my 3-year-old inner child was just so like delighted that I was able to pursue that dream. And then I also found that in answer to that question, throughout my schooling years, I always had empathy for the bully, and in high school I had a girl that wasn't particularly nice to me. They would sometimes not treat me kindly, but I remember my empathetic side was able to see why they did what they did, and all I wanted to do was help them and help them find healing, and we ended up becoming good friends, and that, you know, all got sorted. But sometimes when I was growing up, my healing, empathetic side of me could also be to my detriment, because I was someone that went through trauma, but my younger self would justify it because I would think, well, they're broken, they're hurting, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. And it took me a long time to put boundaries up where, okay, yeah, people are hurting, but it doesn't give them permission to hurt you. Number 9, being and feeling like a wallflower in everyone else's world. Listening to, noticing, and observing everyone curiously. That's how do I answer that one? At the time, I didn't feel like a wallflower because as a child and a teenager, and it was definitely dependent on who I was around, so around peers, I was incredibly hyperactive. Like, I was annoyingly loud, but I think that was in pursuit of me wanting to be noticed and not to be forgotten. But when I was around adults, I think I was a lot quieter, and I just kind of like blended into the shadows until I was a teenager, and that would come out as like anger and rage to be seen. So I think I've always naturally been a wallflower, but I did everything in my power to not be a wallflower and to be seen and to be noticed. And just like I do a lot of parts work with my counselling clients in therapy sessions, I also do parts work with myself, and there was a part of me that felt like I needed to do that for my safety, because I had this fear in me that at any moment I could disappear and die. And so I was very loud and yeah, very cool, just so I wouldn't disappear and become a wallflower. But with that, as I've also reflected on my past and with friendships, I think I was one of those floater friends where I had a lot of friends, but the different groups of people I found out would often like socialize together without me, which I guess in a way is like being a wallflower. And number 10, living in constant fear whilst possibly dealing with bouts of anxiety and depression that may even have been neglected, dismissed by our guardians. Oh, that's a deep, well, it's not a question, but that's a deep statement where I would have to be very vulnerable with you, and vulnerability is, I don't think it's my strength on YouTube to protect myself, and I don't know who's watching this. But looking back, I definitely was in a lot of fear. I don't think as a child I would have seen that as fear though. I'll tell you a story. When I was a kid, I got really sick at one point. This is gonna sound like a made-up story, but I swear it's not. I was in a cyclone. and the cyclone, I was in a village in Fiji, and the cyclone like destroyed this village and destroyed all the sewage system. And I remember as a young child, I was playing in the water, which would have been mixed with the sewage, and I got very sick. It took 2 years to discover that I had a parasite, and I spent a lot of time in and out of hospital, going to doctors, had really bad stomach problems. And I remember that one time when I was in hospital, I think I was in there for about a week. It was long enough where I had to go to school in the hospital. It was at the children's hospital. And I just refused to speak. I was silent for a week. I made friends with the other kids in the ward, but I just would not speak to them. I wouldn't speak to the adults. And obviously I can see now that was fear, but to me at the time, that was me taking my power back. Okay, so those are the top 10 of this graphic image of the most frequented childhood preoccupations growing up INFJ. What do you think about that? Do you relate to any of them? Do you agree with this? I feel like this video, I was like not really in the mood to go deep with you, but I feel like that this has gone quite deep. Anyway, as promised, I said I'd give a little life update. I can see that the video is already going for quite a while now, so I'm going to keep it brief. But here in Australia, we are coming to the end of the school year, which means my kids are going to be home. We're going to be on school holidays. Yay! School holidays in Australia go for about 6 weeks, and then in end of January, beginning of February, they start the new school year. And then of course we have Christmas. Now every year I tell myself, no matter what, I'm going to get a YouTube video out and work really hard on my business. But this year I've decided to give myself a little bit of grace. I'm not making plans. If I can put a video out there for you, I will. If there's a chance that I can film, I will. Luckily, we live on a street where it's filled with lots of different kids that my kids go and play with. So yeah, I might be able to get a video out, but I might also not get a video out. And so I just wanted to share that with you that, yeah, I'm just gonna rest and rejuvenate, plan for 2025. On a professional level, I am tossing up right now about beginning my postgrad in counselling, so my Masters of Counselling. I'm just trying to decide who to do that through. I keep doing that like it's a juggle. And if I decide on a particular one, that will begin in January, and I know it's going to be a lot of work, but it'll be worth it. And so at this rate, I don't know what 2025 looks like. I'll still be around because I love you all and I love this community. But yeah, I just wanted to give you an update on that, just in case you're wondering where I am and if I'm okay. And I'm totally okay. Life's good. It's summer. We're swimming a lot, going to the beach, and yeah, having fun. So that's it from me. Take care, and I'll see you when I see you. Oh, also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Okay, bye.